Okay, good morning, everyone. I hope everyone is doing okay. Welcome to today's series 10 of our webinars. We'll be able to start off and with the theme on patient safety yesterday. Today we'll be able to discuss aspects to do with patient safety and lab-based practices to ensure quality lab service delivery while focusing on patient safety. Okay, I'll be able to take you through today's webinar. So, patient safety. So, it's described as the prevention of harm to patients during the process of healthcare. And it's the core principle of healthcare quality and focuses on reducing risks, errors, and adverse events that can occur while receiving medical care. So, our main focus is aspects to do with improving on our quality, focusing on reducing of the risks, errors, and any adverse events that can occur while receiving medical care. By this, we will be able to ensure patient safety, which is our core mandate in the laboratory as healthcare providers. In context, it can also be described as involving measures to eliminate accidents or adverse effects in clinical settings. That was by Assem and Sabri and Alpha. Failure to maintain patient safety entails significant increase in the cost of care, and it increases morbidity or mortality. It's a propriety of the healthcare system, and not only to improve the outcome of treatment, but to prevent the complications. It's reported that about 2.6 million patients lose their life annually as a consequence of lack of compliance with safety standards. This in turn affects the personal, social, and economic aspects of their families' lives and make the loss even worse for an organization. So in this particular case, if 2.6 million patients lose their life annually as a consequence of lack of compliance to safety, it comes in as a high risk. The number is quite high. And you find that the more one life is lost due to either negligence or lack of focus on the safety, more other effects or ripple effects come into place. The person who was supporting a family will also be affected. You find the organization where the person was working on is also affected, and it all stems to the safety. So with this number being this high, it's our part to ensure that we do minimize it to the least. It's revealed in a study that in low to moderate income countries, they have about 134 million events annually, resulting in 2.6 million deaths every year. This was done in 2018 and 2012. So out of 134 million harmful events, we lose about 2.6 million deaths yearly. The key principles that we should focus on in patient safety are ensuring that we do no harm, non-maleficence, and we avoid preventable injuries. So do no harm simply means your main focus or your main point of target while trying to focus on patient safety is ensuring that you minimize harm at the bare minimum. We focus on system-based approach. Errors can often be due to flawed systems, not just individuals. So if you have an issue at a laboratory, make sure that we have focused on the system-based approach and ensure that they are at par with what we focus on and not only focus on the individual that did the test. So as we do our competency assessments for individuals, we usually ensure that the individuals themselves are able to complete their tasks correctly and as per the prescribed SOPs or followed procedures. But if our systems are flawed, you don't focus on your equipment's performance calibration, the IQC, we will still be able to produce results that are not correct, especially for automated systems. For semi-automated systems or manual systems, you'll find that we'll focus more on the individual. But all in all, has the test kits that the individual is using been verified? So aspects to do with method verification, validation, accuracy, precision studies come into play to ensure that the system-based approach is also error-free. Culture of quality and safety. So while encouraging reporting of errors without fear, no blame culture, so you'll find that it's easy for the organization to actually resolve or fix the issues that they may be having. So it's encouraged that these particular individuals should focus on culture of quality and safety by reporting errors early in advance, and this will in turn improve the patient safety or outcome. But if an organization has a culture of blame, you'll find that most of the individuals will tend to sit on that particular issue and not report it. And that's a high risk area for the patients that come to the facility. Continuous improvement. By monitoring, learning, and implementing safer practices, so frequent CMEs, medical camps, trainings, monitoring of evaluations as per the standards, so an accredited lab, having competency assessments, having biannual checks. So all this by monitoring, we usually tend to improve. So a safety officer in an organization helps in maintaining these particular processes by ensuring frequent or random acts of investigations that will ensure that these particular errors that might be in the laboratory or in the hospital organization setting are able to be arrested early in advance, and therefore will be able to prevent harm to the patients. All in all the aspects will be able to improve on the patient's safety. It will also be able to promote the welfare of patients and the satisfaction of laboratory users, increase the effectiveness of management systems. You'll be able to decrease probability of invalid results and reducing potential of harm to patients, making part of whatever we have said. Lab as an organization, the social unit of people systematically arranged and managed to meet a need or to pursue collective goals on a continuing basis. All organizations have a management structure that determines relationships between functions, positions, and subdivides and delegates roles, responsibilities, and authority to carry out defined tasks. So as a lab, we are considered an organization where we'll have the management structure who will be able to provide the follow-up rules or structures that needs to be followed as an organization on its own, while focusing on the major hospital functions or positions. And these particular roles and responsibilities will definitely be delegated depending on the organization's role. So in an organizations where we have maybe the lab director, a lab manager, a QA officer, and now departmental heads, all these particular individuals will be able to form part of the organization by ensuring that each and every one of them are focusing on their individual roles, responsibilities, and authorities, and then down to the laboratory technicians who is actually doing those particular actual tests or tasks to ensure that the end objective of the organization is met, and that is producing reliable results to those particular patients who have sought help to in that particular laboratory or organization. So 70% of clinical decisions rely on laboratory results, as each and everyone knows. Once you visit the hospital and you've described your symptoms, and you'll be asked to visit the lab to ensure that whatever the doctor is suspecting is actually true. So in quantitative results, you'll be able to get values that will help the doctor check depending on the range, the normal reportable range according to the demographic of the patients or the individual. And for qualitative results, they'll either be a positive or negative or intermediate, depending on the kits that are being used. And with this, it will help the doctor do the clinical evaluation. So a case in point, to find if someone has had an issue with the heart, suffered a heart attack, and they are sent to the laboratory for cardiac marker tests. So you find that if those particular results are not relied on or they are false, depending on either sample mix-up, machine errors on that particular day, you find that the doctor will rule out majorly part of the diagnosis if other diagnosis procedures are not maybe ordered for that particular patient. So you find that it forms a first line of diagnosis before maybe they go further and do other tests. So it will be very wrong to have wrong results being issued. Errors in labs directly impact patient safety. That's very clear. And as per the ISO standards, the 2022 version has really strengthened patient safety through risk-based QMS advances. So patient safety has formed part or the core part of the new standard. The complexity in a lab system. So we have the pre-examination phase. So pre-examination forms part of personnel, competency, and the test evaluations. This is where if a sample mix-up has occurred, sample labeling error has occurred, it will definitely impact the end result of whatever we are focusing on. So it's very keen that from the pre-examination is where we solve most of the issues. And in terms of where, if we relate this particular one to how you prepare your IQCs or your external quality assessment program, you find that at this particular stage, if you are able to do dilution of a chemistry EQA with 3 ml of distilled water instead of 5 ml, you'll find that the end product of your EQA will definitely have a failure. So pre-examination forms the major part of our processes in the laboratory, and they form part of the patient safety because it ensures that you have done the right thing. The patient or client preparation for sample collection should also be okay because if the sample is collected in the wrong tubes for different tests, definitely affects the results. If the sample is not collected correctly, the right sample is not collected, you find that all these three leads to issues. We have sample transportation for laboratories that send the samples to either reference laboratories in different organizations or different laboratories, or if the lab has a satellite model of sample collection, sample transport becomes core. The temperatures that the samples are being transported in, the conditions of the sample transport, are we having extremes of either temperatures, extremes of vibration causing hemolysis, and so on. So sample transport and handling will also form a bigger part of the safety. Aspects to do with the contaminations of those particular samples, mix-up can also arise from sample transportations, and it is key that we ensure that that one is also delivered rightly to the laboratory. Then once we receive that particular sample in the laboratory, there's receipt and accessioning, and you'll find that the personnel who is tasked to maybe receive those samples, they'll be able to do their pre-checks to ensure that the right sample is delivered. And once the right sample is delivered, they'll either accept or reject depending on the rules that the laboratory is following on that particular sample. So if a wrong sample is received at this particular point, it will still form part of the issue in our lab structure. The examination phase will have the quality control testing. So depending on the laboratory protocol or the analyzer protocol, you'll find that most of the QCs either will be done as per numbers that you are doing or as per the daily QC checks. For major part of our region, we do focus on the daily QC check. Other parts of the of the world will either focus on quantitative. So after, let's say, 50 tests, you do a QC. After 100 tests, you do a QC, or you do on need basis, depending on when you have a test, maybe for tests that are not readily ordered for in the laboratory. So this particular QC test, it will depend on what results it will give. So if a QC fails, either on the high range or high bias, you'll definitely expect that your system is giving you high results. So the moment you run that particular patient, you'll get that. So if you failed on your IQC and you have not done the corrective measures. So sometimes it might be that it's only that the QC materials are deteriorated, but you're not sure of that. Is it the system or not? So before you do those particular corrective actions when you have a failed IQC program on that particular day, we'll definitely need to ensure that you don't run those particular patient samples until that particular aspect is corrected, or else you'll be able to subject the same kind of feedback to that particular sample. The other thing is ensuring the calibrations aspect is also done well. And once the results has been issued, there is a post-examination. And the post-examination also forms the major part of this particular ecosystem. This is where the records are kept, the data is kept either digital or hard copies. Either you are using the lab management systems, printing hard copies and filing them, and then transcribing that to the system, or if it's automated LIS. So you find that if you are having that printout from your machine and you are typing it on the equipment, have we done all the necessary steps to ensure that there is no input errors in our machines. So having a second look at that particular results before hitting the send button forms part of ensuring that the data captured is done well. When we do the reporting as well, sharing the information with the patient, we should be able to ensure that the right information is given. Also, reporting of, let's say, critical values and how the laboratory has a protocol to follow on that should also be very critical. And also if the results are given directly to the patients. So data and lab management tools form key part of ensuring that these processes are done correctly, focusing on safety and ensuring that the customer service is done well. Culture in the lab ecosystem. So a pattern of artifacts, behavior, values, beliefs, and assumptions that a group develops as it learns to cope with internal and external problems of survival and prosperity. So while we are trying to fix all these issues that we usually have in our laboratory, we focus on our values, beliefs, and assumptions. It forms part of a culture. So this particular culture is what a new staff, when they come into the laboratory, they'll be able to fit into that particular culture or adopt to a culture that is different from wherever they came from. Culture of or civilizations, taken in its wide ethnographic sense, is a complex whole which includes knowledge, belief, art, morals, law, customs, and any other capabilities and habits acquired by man as a member of society. So that's described by Tyler. Its characteristics and how it will relate to us in a laboratory. It's a social construction, so they usually fit in a group. Provides members with a way of making sense of events. So this is how we do things here, or this is how we operate in our setting. It contains customs and traditions, what we focus on or what you find people doing, and you adopt to it. Then you'll say that I am suited to this particular culture. So you'll say that in a European setting, they have their own culture. In an African setting, we have our own culture. The Indian setting will have their own culture. So this fitting in the customs and traditions of an organization or an individual or a group of people, you'll find that it forms part of our culture. It forms the patterns of beliefs, values, expectations, understandings, and behaviors emerge and evolve over time. It guides behavior, and each organization's culture is unique. That's why you'll find that if you're switching an organizations, you've moved from, let's say, AR and you've gone to Avenue, you'll find that you might have to suit or fit to their particular culture, or sometimes also it's vice versa. You find that the organization that you maybe moved in gets to adopt whatever cultures you have. So culture is vast and it's wide, and you'll find that you can be able to adopt or fit into any that is suited. And if there's a bad culture, you find that it clearly can affect the outcome of what we do. So how fast should an organization attempt to modify its culture? There's a change as fast as practicable, but certainly not as slow as the organization may find it comfortable and cozy. So change fast and not too slow to find it comfortable or cozy. So if you find that a culture is being changed slowly, you find that it becomes more comfortable and cozy. And then as an example that is usually given, if you put a frog in water and you light up the fire underneath the frog, the water will start getting warm and the frog becomes comfortable and now sits in quite well or comfortably. Then the water will turn up from warm and go to hot. And by the time the frog realizes that the water is too hot for it, it has either died or it's difficult for it now to jump out of that particular boiling water. We find that that particular process, the slow process of changing a culture, can affect the processes in the laboratory. So in a nutshell, we are just saying change as fast as it's practicable, not too rapid to switch to different cultures at a go, and not too slow to find it comfortable. Usually there are culture audits that are done, and the most powerful culture exercise is to get management conduct a culture audit on the way we do things around here and how we ought to do things around here. So a culture audit is important. So you'll have either the management check on the processes that are being followed in your laboratory setup or your organization setup. And it's important that that particular audit is done to really check on this is how our things are done, but there's also a right way of doing things. So as you follow your procedures or your SOPs or your patient safety charter, there's a way the organization will do their own processes. But this also needs to be followed or focused on to ensure that that's the right way of doing those particular things, and not only saying that this is how we do and it's fixed as that. Lab quality tools that we usually do to ensure that we focused on the safety and quality tools. We have the good clinical lab practice standard. So the GCLP forms a major part of what we focus on, as you'll find that in everyday setting in the laboratory, we're saying that we are following the good clinical lab practice standard, and it forms the core mandate or the first part of what we do in terms of improving the quality in our lab setting. Then we have the ISO 15189 standard 2022 version, and this is a key tool in laboratory processes, either the accredited labs or the non-accredited labs. It's very important to follow a guideline that has been set for laboratories. So the ISO 15189 standard gives the core mandates of processes to be done to ensure that we have a quality management tool in our laboratory, or we are focusing on the good practices in the lab. Organizations that are accredited by CAP, so they follow the College of American Pathology standard. We have the CLSI standard, and we have also COLA. So these are combination for laboratory accreditation, and each organization will focus on whichever they wish. So you'll find that mostly in our region, we'll focus on the ISO standard and GCLP, and for accredited labs with the CAP, they'll focus on the College of American Pathology standard. So what this just tells is that we usually have tools that we prescribe to, and by following these tools, we get to amend the culture or the processes that we do in our laboratories. The purpose of the 15189 standard, so primarily it is for use by medical labs to develop their systems for managing quality and in assessing their competence. So we'll focus on, as per the 2012 standard, we are focusing on personnel, where we'll check on their competence and everything else. Then we'll focus on the processes or the laboratory itself and so on. So how we'll manage our quality system and how we'll be able to assess those particular competence. And then once we, let's say, get accredited, there are other processes that come into place where we'll check on the internal audits of those particular processes, competency assessment, conformance assessment after a certain duration, and so on. Secondarily, by accreditation bodies in confirming or recognizing the competence of medical laboratories. So the accrediting bodies will be able to focus on the standard they're implementing at the laboratory. So CAP will check on the CAP standard, and then ISO 15189 standard for most organizations that do accreditation for our labs. The pillars of lab quality. So we have quality results, reliable and reproducible results is what we need to focus on. And the baseline, or what is holding the foundation, is the samples. So by having these particular samples, and we want to achieve reliable and reproducible results, and in turn have quality results, we need to focus on the pillars that generate or hold these particular things down up. So you find that if one of the pillars is affected, the top results or the quality results have an issue. So we have validated test methods. So once you employ a new test in your organization, ensure that the process is validated. Once you acquire new equipment, ensure that it's properly validated. And once the equipment manufacturer or the installer has done their installation qualification and operation qualification checks, at the lab, you need to follow and confirm the performance qualifications checks. So the performance qualifications checks, you are checking on the claims that the manufacturer has put in place, if they are conforming to what the equipment is actually doing. So ensure that your accuracy studies have been done correctly, your precision has been done correctly, your linearity has been done, your carryover test has also been done appropriately, especially for sensitive tests like troponin, potassium, and so on. So ensure that all those particular processes have been checked. Validate your test methods that you are using or employing. Validate your test kits. Validate also your tubes or the consumables that you are using that can directly affect the results that you are giving. By this particular data or information, you will be able to ensure that as a part of one pillar, you have able to ensure that you are giving out correct results. The next one is having competent, trained personnel. So the competency part is very important. So as long as you have found the personnel, ensure that they are competent. Ensure that competency assessments are done frequently to ensure that they are doing the right procedures as per your protocols, and they should be trained. So frequent trainings of this particular personnel is important or key. Then you have proficiency testing, or what we commonly say external quality assessment. So external quality assessment comes in play to support the internal quality control procedures that we do as a lab. So if we have focused on our IQCs, the daily IQCs are okay for that particular month, and we have enrolled in, let's say, a quarterly or a monthly EQA program. So our EQA program will help you get comparisons with peers. So if we have done our equipment tests for that particular month using third-party QCs or first-party QCs. So for first-party QCs, unless the organization is giving you a software that you can be able to review peer comparisons, third-party companies usually offer that. So you'll find that you are able to compare your analyzer with others. If you're not having those particular schemes, you'll find that the proficiency testings or EQA will be an important tool to do this. So in external quality assessment, you'll find that, or in PT, you'll find that we are having a comparison with other methods, other instruments, or the general combination of all peers, and you'll be able to see how you are comparing with, let's say, 300, 400, or 1,000 laboratories doing the same particular sample, the same as you. So that will ensure that if lab A in Kenya does this particular test of albumin and they get a 30, and a lab in India has done the same particular sample and they get a 30, and a lab in China has done the same particular test and they get a 30, that ensures that the quality results that your laboratory is giving is the same with the one that is maybe given with a reference laboratory, and so on, so that you get to have that quality confidence in the results that you are able to give out in your laboratory. So that if a person does a test in lab A and they do a retest in lab B, you'll have conformance of their data. And if there is any differences, usually we focus on the allowable limits for each and every particular test, and they are well listed in the documents we follow. So PT or EQA forms a bigger pillar, or the middle part of the pillar, because it will confirm that the IQCs that we do are correct. So in case where you find that you failed an EQA for a certain analyte, but your IQCs have been passing all through, you need to really interrogate your system. So are you using the correct IQC material? Are you using the correct values? Is the calibration okay? Or there is a certain bias with that particular product that you are using? You can go ahead and subject to a third-party QC that is independent of your system or your manufacturer, and that can really help out rule out any issues. Equipment and reagents. So ensuring that you're using unexpired reagents, valid reagents. Do you follow onboard stability studies that is given by the manufacturer? Do you follow expiry criteria that are given by the manufacturer? Because remember, the manufacturer has done those particular studies, and they're not just there out to sell to you, but they have done actual studies and they have published. So if you are informed that calibration has to be done every 7 days, that is as per the manufacturer's calculation or assessment of performance of that particular reagent. So if you have not blindly followed and you've done your own studies, then that's when you can say, I'm extending this calibration and so on. But this particular process needs to be correctly or accurately followed by ensuring that the reagents you're using is correct. Because remember, if you're using a wrong reagent for that particular test, it has expired, or the onboard stability is, or there's been cross-contamination, mix-up, you'll get wrong results in the long run. And that definitely affects even the kinds of calibration curves that you get, or the IQC curves that you get. Ensuring that the equipment is well maintained, serviced in time, not used when it has downtime. Sometimes you might have a crisis where the doctors want results, but the equipment is not functioning correctly. It's very important that we ensure that the equipments are giving the correct results, instead of giving into pressure and then have issues in the long run. So this is part of the Clinical and Lab Standard Institute that have given the pillars in lab quality. Competence assessment testing. So to ensure that our patients get the right results, competency assessment is important, and it is described as a systematic process that allows for a measurable assessment for the staff's ability to perform required activities. Purpose of competency testing will assess the knowledge, skills, and attitude necessary to perform the job effectively. So depending on how your organization is actually structuring your competency assessments, you can have an individual who is an expert in that particular one assess this particular individual. You can have paper or documented procedures that the person can follow, observing visually. So those form parts of tools that you can use to do competency assessment. Also, if you are doing, let's say you are using external quality assessment as a tool, you can also be able to subject that. So different organizations will have maybe different individuals run that particular program or AQA at certain intervals as part of competency assessments, or assessing the skills or knowledge or attitude of this particular individual. So in the long run, you'll find that by having correct assessments, you'll be able to correct the issues that you might be having and be able to correct those issues and arrest them early enough. So the methods we are having, as you've said, direct observations, you'll have a checklist and you're checking out how they are doing the procedures. This is usually very common in, let's say, molecular analysis, microbiology, where you are checking how the procedures are done as per the SOPs or as per the organization's policies. Then indirect observations can include monitoring records, you have a retest, case studies as part of indirect observations. Then we'll go to method verification. So method verifications confirms methods performed as claimed by the manufacturer. So once you've received your equipment or you've received your kit or you've received your test tubes, perform a method verification process. So a manufacturer will do a validation of their equipment. So you come in and do a verification as per their claims. So they are already listed claims. So you'll have claims of accuracy, claims of precision, claims of carryover, and you need to do this to confirm that the analyzer is actually doing as per the intended. Some manufacturers will send you a report that comes with the analyzer, a checklist of the tests that they have done. So usually it's also important for you to actually check aspects to do with, let's say, biosafety cabinets, laminar flows. They'll usually you'll get a test report that claims the air pressure that it's inside the equipment and so on. So all those forms part of your verification of the manufacturer's claims. It's required to, before a test kit, equipment and consumables in the routine lab is put in use. So once you received your equipment and the IQ, PQ has been done, the installation qualification has been done, the operations qualification has been done, now do the performance qualifications and the verification comes in play there. So includes key performance characteristics. So we've said accuracy, precision, linearity, and carryover. So we had a CME on carryover, and it's form an important part of these particular processes. So for accuracy, you understand that the analyzer is giving you the correct result as is expected, and the precision is that you are getting the same results over and over again. If we are focused on the dartboard, so for precision, you are hitting the same place, let's say thrice, 4 times, 5 times, getting the same result. So 21.5, 21.56, 21.55, 21.4, and so on. While accuracy, you are getting the accurate results or what was intended. So if the target was 30 and you are getting a 29, then we say you are accurate. Under linearity, we are just checking the limits of the analyzer. So can it do as per the analytical measurement range of the equipment? So if you are saying that the equipment needs to read a HB of this particular value and a low value of this, is the machine able to do that? So you'll find that linearity is majorly done with our organizations, especially accredited labs, after certain durations, so 6 months or 1 year. And it's important that we focus on this because it will help you know if you get a very high sample at any point in the testing phase in your laboratory, you are able to read, the analyzer is able to read. If you're able to get very low, the analyzer is able to read. And this also forms part of your equipment selection. So you'll find that different analyzers have different linearity limits, and you'll be able to check or choose an equipment based on the setup of your equipment. So if you are in a cancer laboratory, you'll find that you have to pick an equipment that can be able to pick those extremes high or extreme low. So if you pick an analyzer that has a lower linearity limit, you'll find that you'll have an issue. So those particular checks will help. While carryover is those particular samples that are carried over when you are doing a very high sample. So you run a sample with very high troponin and the next sample is run. So do you have those after effects where some remnants of the high results are replicated back to the next sample? So the laboratory, you need to establish such a study, and there's CME we've done on it. You can check on the YouTube page and check on how you'll be able to do these particular carryover studies. And usually they are also subjected to the manufacturer's claim. So in your laboratory's handbook or your user manual, you'll be able to get the carryover statistics, and you need to check if they conform to that. So whatever results that you get, are they meeting the manufacturer's claim? And they should always, in terms of carryover, we usually say we focus on the minimums of the values. So it's never high. If it's high, it's a problem. So when you have a high range of results run, and then you do a sample, there is an issue. So this carryover aspect also comes in play when we are doing linearity. So when you're doing linearity studies, linearity, usually we subject the equipment to extreme high samples, and then we do also the extreme low samples. So you'll find that if I've given you a linearity for, let's say, hematology, you'll find that for WBCs, we have vial 1, so a total of 6 vials, but we have one vial that is level 1, another vial level 3, level 5, level 7, level 12, and level 13. So while we are doing this particular test, you'll find that the manufacturer has advised you to follow the serial processes or the serial vials, so that in case you start off from level 13, there is that particular effect that might carry over to these other samples. And while running linearity, the first check the manufacturer will tell you, do not run a patient sample in between these particular linearity studies. So you have 24 vials for hematology, and then you need to run them each and every one of them 4 times. So let's say for hematology, you have WBC platelets, RBC, HB, and HCT. So if you are doing those 24/4 tests and you are only having one analyzer, you'll find the manufacturer has clearly stated, do not run any patient sample in between. Unless if there is an emergency where you really have to run that particular patient, you have to do that particular background test at least 3 times to ensure that all remnant that might be remaining back, because not if you check your manual, not all materials have a 0% carryover rate. There's some percentage that the manufacturer has studied, and it's there. So you find that those particular instructions form key part in terms of that. So that's the same thing that we are saying when you're doing carryover studies. If you get a patient with very high, let's say, viral load, what have you done in your analyzer to ensure that the same is not replicated to the same? So you find different manufacturers will have different techniques in ensuring that this is done correctly. A will be single-use pipettes. B manufacturers can adopt 2 dual pipetting systems. Manufacturers that you'll find that are using a single pipette systems, you'll find that maybe they're utilizing a double wash procedure, where they'll have a wash in wall and a wash out wall procedure. You'll find that the manufacturers can implement by using Teflon. So Teflon is a material that is repels liquid. So if the pipette goes into a liquid, the moment it lifts up, the liquid is left behind, like it will not stick. So you'll find that this particular can be affected if you're using a machine that has an old pipette that has maybe crept off the Teflon on it. So those are part of the things that as a laboratory you need to check as you are doing your studies. So if, let's say, you are running, maybe your water runs out in the middle of there, remember it affects how that particular pipette will be effectively cleaned, and then carryover effects are in place, because at some point you will never know. For our labs, let's say you are doing batch or up to 10 samples in a go, and number 5 has very high values affecting number 6, number 7, and so on. So that forms part of your verification. Under EQAs, so EQAs, the organization or the EQA provider will give you blind samples. Blind samples simply mean you don't know the results for them. Unlike where IQC, where you usually know the targets and so on, for EQA, you don't know the results. You'll only know the results after you get the report. So you'll be given blind samples. You'll analyze the samples under routine conditions. So usually say mimic the patient's processes. Then you'll submit the results to the EQA provider. They'll do statistical evaluation, and then you'll receive a performance report, and then you'll interpret the results, implement quality improvement actions where required. So if you have a warning signal, you'll be able to now check if the system is giving you bias, or if you have an action signal, you need to correct it before you do the next particular round of IQCs or patient testings. Benefits for enrolling in EQA or PT. You get to compare your results to same analytical system. So if you're using Human, Mindray, we compare you with the same. So if you're using a ZBio, we will say that there are 30 participants of ZBio. This is the results for their HB. So if if they were getting a mean of 20.5 and your result was 30 points, you'll get to know that there's an issue or a system issue with your results. You can also be compared to method grouping, reagents, and also the general. So the general means that we are comparing our results from a Mindray to a Sysmex to a Gendrui to a SNIBE and so on. So this particular general grouping helps us know that if I do a test under Fujifilm for ALT, it will not be so different from a SNIBE being analyzed in a different laboratory. It cannot be different from a Mindray and so on. So this usually helps us also improve on the quality results that we give and also in equipment selection. We're able to assess lab performance, ID performance improvements by doing our corrective actions, root cause analysis, and preventive actions, implement actions for quality improvement, and we receive a participate for certification. So that's just a simple process. You get a PT sample sent regularly to you. You analyze, send results, evaluated, get a report, do corrective actions. So the purpose for it involves use of interlab comparisons to determine performance of participants. So this is just simply a worldwide or an international or a local kind of interlab comparison. So you'll find that you'll get a sample and it's run with so many laboratories. So for qualitative results is where you have a result that is already given by an expert lab or an expert equipment. But for chemistry, hematology, you find that these results are a mean of these particular runs in different settings. So it's very important that you get to understand that there is now robust statistics that will be used to do the classifications and analysis and so on. IQCs, so labs should design quality procedures to verify attainment of intended quality results. Are you doing it annual, monthly, quarterly? Are you doing them daily? Are you doing them after a certain number of tests and so on? So depending on the particular analyte or test, and as per the standard, it gives you an allowance to you for the laboratory to decide depending on the frequency of that particular test. So if you are doing a test maybe once a week on Fridays, you don't need to do those particular IQCs every day. So you can do it before that particular day's run is done. For qualitative tests, QCs are basically the positive and negative controls. For quantitatives, QCs are monitored using LJs and the waistguard rules. So have you violated a 10x rule, a 1x rule, a 2x rule, a 4x rule, and so on. So all those helps you ID the issues with the system, either systematics or random errors in your IQCs. So calibrators, these are substances with specific concentrations. They are used to calibrate the measuring points of a scale. So a calibrator will tell you that HDLC, the value is 1.54, and you do an analysis. So my analyzer will give you an absorbance. That absorbance will be related to the calibrator target, and that target will now draw a curve. So once we get that particular curve, that curve is what will help us get the patient results and the control's results. So once you do a control is similar to patient sample that has been established concentrations, and it spans the different ranges. So we can have low, normal, high, or level 1, level 2, or normal and pathological. They are used to ensure that the procedure is working properly. So you have calibrated your scale or your curve to the calibrator's concentration, and then you run a control. So whatever you are getting from the control in your analyzer is an absorbance or an RLU if you're using clear systems, or an absorbance value if you're using ELISA systems. So that value will now be put in that particular calibration curve that you have, and then it will now give you a value. So if our calibrator is wrongly, that your controls will fail. And how do you know that now our calibration is okay? So rarely do we know if calibrators are actually okay. For us, what we usually check in calibration is if an absorbance has been read, and if the curve has been drawn going in the direction the insert has said. So if it's an ascending reaction, a descending reaction, logistics log 5p curve, if it's a linear curve. So all those what we focus on in calibration is just checking if the right procedure has been done. But the control is what will tell you if your calibration is okay. So if you can't calibrate and run a patient sample, you can't do that unless you've done a comparison with another system. If let's say you don't have QCs and you have another system that is correctly calibrated or from a reference laboratory and so on. But all in all, calibrators are works hand in hand with controls. Controls is what gives the calibrators the performance for them. So in controls, whatever you'll do now is checking in if we are on the range. So the absorbance you'll get will be checked and you'll get a value. So if that value is within the range, are you at the mean? Are you at the negative bias or the positive bias? All those are determined by the controls. Patient safety standard clauses that are focused on patient safety. So we have 4.113, patient-centered focus across all processes. ID and confidentiality and ethics on 5.3, risk management framework to prevent harm on 8.5. So those are aspects to focus on it. On pre-analytical best practices as per the ISO, patient ID, request validation, sample collection and labeling, transport storage and sample integrity. Analytical best practices, validation and verification of methods. We've clearly gone through it very effectively. Use of reference materials and calibration, IQC and participation in EQA, staff competency and authorization. Post-analytical processes, timely release of authorized reports, those flags, those critical reports, timely release is quite important. Critical results notifications, they form part of saving life or not. So if you stay with a very high potassium level in the lab, you might find that the patient is actually in ICU while the results are stuck somewhere in release. Secure storage and data integrity are very important to ensure confidentiality and safety. Biosafety and infection prevention, error reporting and corrective actions, risk assessments for patient harm, continuous staff training. Under the framework, we have competency, impartiality, consistency in operations, risk-based QMS, ensures safety at every stage, continuous monitoring audits, and management review. Benefits of ISO-based best practices. So we have reduced diagnostic errors, so safer patient care, faster standardized TATs, better clinical decisions, trust from clinicians and patients, improved outcomes. So you want to have those questions of, is this really the results? Do a rerun and so on. Under documentations, if it's not documented, it never happens. Ensure that all those competency assessment tests are done correctly. Your IQCs are printed and correctly stored and so on. Maintenance of prompt accuracy and complete documents. Why, how, when, and by whom was the test performed. Ensure that the sign-offs are clear and so on, so that they can be tracked down if there is anything. So write down what you do what is written down, follow your SOPs and so on. So under lab data, lab users expect that acquired to be attributable, legible, contemporaneous, original, and accurate. So teamwork is the ability to work together towards a common vision, the ability to direct individual accomplishment towards organization's objectives. It's the fuel that allows common people to attain and common results, by Andrew Carnegie. So at the lab, we are working as a team. So if you get to have only working as an individual and there's a team, usually there's so much issues that usually relate to that. So a culture or a lab or an organization that has a culture of working as a team, you'll find that they usually achieve their processes quite effectively with no much hassle. So our calls to actions, embed patient safety in all lab processes, use the ISO standards as a safety roadmap, or the CAP, or whichever policy that you follow or standard. Train and empower lab professionals, adopt a risk-based patient-centered culture to focus on that. So under Keton Marketplace, as I wind up for the last part of the session, so you have linearity verification materials that you can be able to acquire to ensure that your verification processes are okay. So here you'll have linearity, accuracy, precision materials that you can get commercially, or we can be able to be taken through on how the preparation of them can be done. External quality assessments or PT schemes. So we have ISFICA as our IQA provider based in Germany, accredited by DAX. Third-party QCs for your equipment. So if you are using the first-party QCs, it's also good at some point to subject your equipment to third-party QCs, or if you want to ensure maybe consistent supplies for those particular products. The third-party QCs are suitable for most of the equipments. You just share the equipment you're using and you'll be able to share. So it really helps find any gap in the first-party QCs that you might be using. IVDs, equipment, then trading and learning, and mentorship. So this is part of the linearities hematology. So we usually give a complete report for our hematologists, and we'll give you a report that has done analysis on calibration verification, a report that has done an analysis on reportable range, linearity, analytical sensitivity, analysis of bias and imprecision error, measurement of total error limit, risk analysis. So a very complete report that you get, and you get to know where you can have a risk of exceeding linearity limits so that you are able to correct them early in advance. This is for chemistry. You will be able to also be compared to other peers using the same materials worldwide, and you're able to assess your linear regression graphs. This is part of our EQA programs. So have quarterly, semi-annual, and annual and monthly programs that you can get from chemistry, hematology, immunoassay, microbiology, molecular, and hematology panels. So you get certificates for participation and also a certificate for performed or passed analytes. This is third-party QCs with the softwares that you can get for third-party QC monitoring. So you can get LJ's check, and you get also peer comparisons. Third-party QCs, so they'll span a wide range of equipments listed there. That's hematology, we have chemistry, immunoassay, D-dimer, cardiac, TDM, urinalysis, molecular, serology. That's our contacts, and thank you for listening and attention to our webinar today. So be able to open up the mics so that you can have the Q&A session. Just a second. Okay, so mics are unmuted. So if you have any burning question, kindly raise your hand, and then you can be able to ask, and we'll be able to discuss. Under Q&A, we have Samuel Otieno Odur. After how long should an EQA be done in a normal lab practice? So Samuel, the EQA depends on the organization or the processes that you do. So if you are doing, let's say, a chemistry, hematology, molecular, microbiology, the basic programs that we usually do is the quarterly survey. So quarterly survey can be very good because after every 3 months, you can be able to check if your processes in IQCs are okay. So quarterly can be very sufficient for you. Some stretch to maybe semi-annual. Semi-annual only may focus on tests that are not so frequent in the laboratory. So you can see hematology is a test that is done daily and every time, chemistry and so on. But you might have some tests that maybe you have a frequency of maybe weekly before you do. So those can be subjected to the quarterly survey. And then depending on organization's budget, and also the processes they follow, some do the monthly survey. So monthly is actually the best because you are able to arrest any issues by the end of that particular month. So for my advice usually is for labs to go for the monthly for high throughput samples or high throughput panels or programs, and then quarterly for middle. So a lab can always start at quarterly, and it's very sufficient. And then semi-annual if it's really a stretch in the laboratory, or the lab is just now trying to switch to semi-annual into EQA programs. But quarterly is quite sufficient for that. Okay, so we have no further questions on the Q&A or the chat box. So if you have any query, you can unmute and ask. Daniel Muriti, apologies, I didn't see your chat on time. I hope it improved over time. Or anyone can confirm if maybe the audio had an issue also from their end, but apologies for that. Okay, let me see Q&A. Do you supply human or bovine-based third-party QC materials? Gordon, it depends with the manufacturer, and also it depends on the products that they are using. So for some samples, you'll find that, let's say in IQCs, the US third-party QCs that we get for hematology are based in from USA. So we find that they have procedures that they either collect the samples from alligator blood due to its mimicking of samples. Some materials usually they have stock samples that they combine with human or human sera, that is, let's say for chemistry, audit microcontrols in USA. They can also form part of that processes. So all this usually depends on the manufacturers. So you find TTIs, they have these spike samples that they have either collected from human origin or bovine-based origin. So it totally depends on the manufacturer and manufacturing processes of that particular organization. Peter Marube from Huruma Lab, as a QA, how can you improve quality and efficiency in the lab? So Peter, QA or the quality manager or the quality assurance officer is the core part of that particular process. What I usually say is, as a QA, you have to have been trained on internal audit. With internal audit, and you understand that particular standard, you'll be able to do audit processes and competency processes in your organization. So it's very important that as a QA officer, have a training on ISO 15189 standard. Remember, you have to understand that particular standard in and out, and then have a training on internal audit. Those particular two skills will really help you improve the efficiency in your lab. Remember, all these processes will focus on a standard that has been put in place. So if as a quality officer, you are keen or you are good with your ISO standard, you'll be able to implement effectively without pressure, and also implement the same to your staff in the laboratory. So I would say have a good knowledge skill on ISO standard, internal audit, and it will be quite easy for you to improve efficiency in your lab. Ensure that the laboratory also is subjected to IQC materials. Remember, as a QA officer, if the lab does not do IQCs, you'll just be running samples day in, day out. You don't do any interlab comparisons, you just be doing day in, day out. So these are tools that help you confirm whatever processes that you have implemented or you've corrected or prevented from occurring are actually taking shape or following the procedures that you've laid down. So I would say have that particular standard, go through it well, get trainings on them, and you'll be able to implement quality processes effectively. Start also from a simple part of view. Start with GCLP. There are so many online resources currently that can do that for you and actually take you through those particular processes effectively. I hope, Peter, that is answered correctly. If you have any follow-up, kindly just unmute and be able to ask. And the experts also in the meeting can also be able to respond effectively. Samuel Otieno, after how long? Okay, that one we have gone through. Okay, having no any other question, for the next 5 minutes, you can be able to unmute and maybe ask the query. If not, I would like to thank you for attending today's webinar. Feel free to reach out to us in case you have any issues. The CPD points will be auto-populated for individuals that registered and actually attended. So for this particular process, we'll usually check on the attendance register vis-a-vis the registration lists, and then allocate the points as desired, and also any other documents that it should be shared on email. As Keton, Mr. Arnold Nyaga is asking, as Keton, do you assist laboratories to interpret linearity studies? Yes, Arnold. Once you procure materials from us, so the benefit for linearity materials from Keton is that we'll give you free analysis for that particular report. So you'll get an extensive 20-page analysis for hematology. For chemistry, you'll get individual page report for each analyte. So if you're doing 30 analytes, you'll get 30-page reports. You'll get the peer comparison, and you'll also get the reporting for each particular analyzer. So for chemistry, you get a free software that you can manipulate on your own, and you can do even up to 10 or 5 machines as long as the sample can hold. For hematology, they'll give you 1 free analysis per material, and any other analysis can be charged. And once you get your report, we usually assist you in interpreting. So we'll go through a session where we'll discuss the report, discuss those particular AMR, discuss those particular bias, the ranges that we are given, the analytical ranges, and so on. So we'll be able to go through that with the laboratory after they get their particular report. So yes, we do offer interpretations on our linearity studies reports. And also we help you do the analysis for them. So different labs can also have their own tools, because it's just a regression analysis. So you find that other laboratories might choose to have their own tools, but it's also good to get another comprehensive report from a statistical company that does that particular process. It's known as Verified Medical Research, a company in the USA that does those particular analysis for us. Then for chemistries, you get online software free of charge that gives you the ability to do those particular processes. So even if you do one material and after 1 month you get another laboratories and you have the same material, you can be able to analyze and still do analysis for it, FOC. Okay, thank you everyone for making time and attending. If there is no other question, I will let you go back to your duties. Thank you so much for making time to attend our trainings. So I'll respond to this as maybe guys take leave to return to their duties. Have a lovely day. In case a person doesn't have enough money to buy your equipments, do you accept HP terms? Yes, Mr. Bildad Barasa. kindly reach out to our sales team and you'll be able to get a plan for that. So there are different processes. So there's a payment plan that can be done, and you can be able to reach out to sales@ketonconsulting.com for further information. There are placement terms, there is direct purchase, so you can be able to reach out and a salesperson will be able to advise you accordingly. So I've put the email on chat box. Thank you for making time. Have a lovely day and weekend ahead.